Holy smoke, so today we saw Tesla stock fall down to about $169 per share. Now back in December 28th, when I made a video warning about Tesla being a bit overvalued from a technical perspective as well as a fundamental perspective, I was called crazy. I mean, a few individuals even said that, Tesla was gonna hit $300 by the beginning of January. However, that did not happen. In fact, we ended up seeing Tesla stock fall down drastically, and then once Tesla stock fell down to $180, I made a video saying, look guys, I told you so, and I got a lot of individuals bombarding me with DMs, comments, emails saying, no, this is the bottom for Tesla. And I said, look, I'm not entirely convinced and I want to wait for confirmation. And we didn't see that ever happen. In fact, we ended up seeing Tesla stock fall down even further. And here we are today with Tesla at $169 per share. But the worst part is that there's still more bad news. Because today we had Wells Fargo just downgrade Tesla stock to an underweight rating, slashing its price target to $125 per share from $200. And one of the concerning things is that $125 per share is still an additional 30% down from these levels. And so that's bad. Now, I know some individuals are going to say, oh, well, it's Wells Fargo. No one cares about them. And look, I agree. Yes, I did used to work for Wells Fargo, but I'm not a big fan of them. I don't want anyone to kind of think that just because I'm mentioning what Wells Fargo said, I'm actually agreeing with them. There's a certain area that I want to look at that we're going to go ahead and take a look at once we hop into my laptop. But the case is, we're having these major downgrades. Now, Wells Fargo ended up saying that they expect Tesla's electric vehicle deliveries to come in below average estimates because its price reductions are producing less demand than they had been previously. And then they also went on and said that the profit margins on its upcoming more affordable EV will also be rather low. And so they expect that the EV makers' earnings per share are going to fall additionally because of the price cuts going forward. And so look guys, Wells Fargo is not giving Tesla any breaks. And of course, why should they? I mean, if you actually look at the overall performance of the overall market, pretty much Tesla is one of the biggest underperformers. I mean, I get a lot of comments of people saying, oh, Justin, I understand you're not buying Tesla in your long-term portfolio, but are you at least trading it? And the answer is no. I've been saying this in every video, no, because there's been so many other opportunities out there. I mean, we talked about it in the Push and Profit private group. I mean, there's so many other, tickers to trade or even invest in rather than Tesla, right? I'm waiting for a specific area, and of course we're gonna go ahead and talk about that, but the reality is I'm not even really looking at Tesla because it's honestly looking pretty bad. I mean, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. When something's so bad, you kind of just don't want to look at it. You're looking away, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Now, am I still bullish on Tesla long term? Absolutely, but that doesn't mean I want to buy it every single dip. I always say that it's not just about buying the dip, It's about, being patient, right? And waiting for that confirmation of that uptrend, because the dip can always get dippier. People always like to say, oh, just buy the dip, average down, and that's fine, but the dip can always get dippier. And so I like to wait for that confirmation, and we still have not seen that. And it's also looking like we may see prices fall down even further down. Now, again, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, but I also want to highlight a couple other notable points in regards to Tesla. Now, recently, Dan Ives, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, so we'll just refer to him as Danny Boy, but he's an analyst from Wedbush, and he's been very bullish on Tesla for the last few years. And in fact, this morning, he still kept a price target of $315, and that Tesla is at outperforming rating, or has an outperform rating, right? And he also went on to say that, yeah, he does see that the first quarter deliveries are likely to go lower than what Wall Street is looking for, but he believes that going into the rest of the year, it's going to make a comeback. And so I want to talk about that later on in this video. And so if you're still watching this video, make sure to watch this video in its entirety because there's a couple of interesting things. Now, also, one of the other things I want to mention is that compared to a lot of the other mega cap names, Tesla is one of the most shorted ones. And so this, I believe, is going to provide an opportunity forward, right? Going into the future. I think this is going to provide an opportunity, especially if we continue seeing Tesla fall down. I believe that a short squeeze could take place. And, I want everyone to be patient. I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but I think this is going to be to our advantage later on in the year, and probably like going into like the third quarter or fourth quarter. And so we'll go ahead and touch on that. But one thing I want us to know is that Tesla is a heavily shorted name in comparison to a lot of the other mega caps. And again, this might actually be beneficial. Now, before we actually hop into my laptop and kind of look at Tesla from a technical perspective, I just want to provide a friendly reminder that if you haven't done so already, consider tapping that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future upload. And while you're at it, also consider checking out the links in the description below, because the first link is going to be a link to join the Push and Profit private group, where every single day the markets are open. I provide a daily briefing. For example, just the day before, we talked about CPI and how we expected it to actually come in hotter, and that this was actually going to be an opportunity, and indeed it was. So if you guys want access to those daily briefings, first link in the description below. But with that said, let's go ahead and hop into my laptop. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla, and one thing I want to identify is that we just broke a crucial area, right? So for a while, I've been saying, look, when you're looking at the volume relative to price, and there's little volume relative to price, that's where you see the big moves. When we have a lot of volume relative to price, that means that there's a lot of exchanging between the buyers and the sellers, and that's where we see consolidation. Well, we ended up just recently falling below this shelf and now entering into this area where there's little volume relative to price. And so if selling pressure continues, we could see some more dramatic moves for Tesla. Now, one of the areas I've highlighted for a while has been this gap, right? I've talked about this, I believe it's been for a couple months now, saying, look, I'm looking to see what Tesla does at this gap, but I want to clarify something, right? I don't want anyone to kind of think that my approach is, hey, when Tesla falls down to $155 per share, that I'm absolutely buying. No, it's the same thing that I do at any level. I want to see what it does at that level, but then I want to wait for confirmation of an uptrend. Just like how, when I said Tesla was pretty much overvalued technically and fundamentally back in December 28th, it kept falling down. I made my video saying, look, I told you guys it was down, and it hit 180, and a lot of the other Tesla, channels that cover it, they said, no, 180 is the bottom. And I said, look, I want to wait for confirmation of an uptrend, and I said I wanted to see Tesla close above $204. I wanted to see that confirmation, right? Now, when we go ahead and take a look into a line chart, we see that Tesla never closed above $204. So I never got that confirmation. And the reason I toggled over to a line chart is because line charts show you the closing price, because at one point in the pre-market we did hit like $206, but we never closed above that. And Charles Dow, the guy who founded, one of the founders of the Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal, he loved line charts. He believed that the closing price was what really mattered, because that's the price that buyers and sellers that's the price they settled on. And so, that's why I also look at the closing price for anyone wondering. But we never closed above $204, so the confirmation of the uptrend was not there. And that's why I said I don't necessarily think 180 is the bottom. Yeah, I got called crazy. And here we are today. And so when Tesla falls down, or if it does, because of course we don't know, right? We could have Elon Musk announce some news, which actually I want to go ahead and share something. For example, right over here, we had this tweet from Teslarati saying that Elon Musk does have something under his sleeve, saying something really cool stuff is set to be released in the next couple of months. So we have a catalyst coming out, but we don't know what that is. And again, we just don't know what that is. But the idea is, look, if we do see the selling pressure continue, we could see Tesla easily fall down to that $150 area. And from there, we want to see, well, does it hold up? Or does it continue falling down, right? Because again, I want to clarify, just because it hits 150 doesn't mean I'm buying. I want to see what it does at that area. I want to see if we bounce and show that confirmation, or we break below. Now, a lot of individuals are adjusting down their price target for Tesla. I mean, we saw Wells Fargo bring it down to 125, and I said that's an additional 30% lower. Now, in my discounted cash flow analysis, Tesla's around $100, from a fundamental perspective. Now, again, do stocks always follow your discounted cash flow value models? No, right? Because again, what really triggers the market to go up and down is the capital going in and going in and out. But one thing I like to do is compare my discounted cash flow analysis to others, and we see that Simply Wall Street, their discounted cash flow analysis is putting Tesla at a fair value at $101, not too far off from mine. We also have Alpha Spread, and theirs is a bit lower, $76. But again, one thing that people have to understand is that whatever financial model you do in your Excel spreadsheet, if you are doing one, it doesn't necessarily mean the stock has to fall down. But the reality is the intrinsic value for Tesla is much lower than where it's at. And we're starting to see some financial institutions make some adjustments. Now, I talked about Danny Boy, right? We talked about Danny. He's still being very bullish for Tesla, saying it could hit, pretty high towards the end of 2024. And that's something we can't rule out. I think that because Tesla has a large, shorting taking place for it, that there could be a short squeeze, especially if we see a lot of selling take place. And let's say we do end up going to $100, right? Like my discounted cash flow model has. Well, more shorts are probably going to pile on. And then if we do have some good catalysts, such as let's say Elon Musk makes some amazing announcement, or you just don't know, right? Some crazy catalyst event that's very positive for Tesla, that's enough to kind of change the trajectory of things. Plus, we're going to have rate cuts take place. We could very well indeed see Tesla kind of end up being like the underdog for the year. But right now, things are not looking good, especially when we see that for the year, it's one of the worst performing stocks in terms of the mega cap stocks. I mean, look at it from, January, where it's at now. If you take a look at, let's take a look at Meta from January to now. From January to now, Meta up. Let's take a look at NVIDIA, one of the trade ideas I shared within the Push Your Profit private group. From January to now, at one point it was up almost like 90-something%. Just the regular broader markets, S&P 500 is beating Tesla, right? And so Tesla, one of the worst performing stocks. And so that's why, when people have been asking me, hey, Justin, are you trading it? No, right? There's opportunities elsewhere. And also my long-term investing portfolio, right? Because I trade in a separate account, but I also invest. I'm not buying, right? And again, I know people say, oh, well, just buy the dip. And again, you should not copy what I do. You should only buy in whenever you see value in something. But a lot of individuals are like, oh, well, I'm just buying the dip. Well, look, guess what? The dip got dippier. And again, I always try to share with this because I always get those comments saying, oh, it's not about timing the market, it's timing the market. Well, look, I work hard for my money, and I don't want to just throw my money at something just because something is dipping down when I don't know, right, if it's going to continue going down, right? Again, we never know, but when we have confirmation of an uptrend, at least that gives us a better signal that I'm not just throwing my money into an abyss. Again, I don't know what anyone does for their profession, for their career, what you do for a living, but you work hard for your money, and it's very important to not just burn it and throw it away. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Work hard for your money, put it in something just because it's falling down, and then see it go down even further. The pain that you have from that emotionally is just very tough. And so that's why, look, I'm not buying. And I know I get a lot of individuals say, how are you bullish, but you're not buying the dip? Again, everyone has their own separate, unique approach. I'm bullish in the long term. I made a video talking about Goldman Sachs and how they have this very bullish report for Tesla in robotics, but that's further down the line. That's years. You could be a bull for a company for the next 5 to 10 years and not buy anything in these short-term periods where things are not looking good. Why am I going to throw money into something that falls down? I want you guys to ask yourself that, right? But again, everyone has their own trading and investing philosophy, and so I'm not trying to push my ideas out there. I'm just sharing how I view the markets. Again, if you also want to join the Push and Profit private group where I talk about what stocks I'm looking to trade and invest, it's the first link in the description down below. But with that said, I'm going to cut this video short right over here. No need to make it any much more longer than it needs to be. But before you guys go, consider checking out this video right over here, and I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.